Hey everyone, this is Stephanie here with Creatingwithin.com, and I wanted to talk today about relationships and the Caretaker Syndrome and how to not lose yourself in a relationship, because this theme has been coming up a lot for me lately, whether it's in my groups or somebody calls me and they want to talk to me about something, or I run into someone, and so this theme has been coming up a lot, and I realize that there's a reason, and when themes come up I'm like, okay, this is a topic that I should discuss because it's obviously been coming up for me a lot. How to not lose yourself in a relationship. Like so many of us, relationship is such a big part of ourselves because it's natural for us as humans. We want to merge with someone else. We want to have that bond, that connection. But what happens is that a lot of us haven't done the inner work, and we still have a lot of stuff, whether it's from our childhood or just our own stuff or our own needs or our own voids that we're trying to fill. And a lot of the times we're unaware of it. And so when we enter relationships, we realize, or we may not realize, that we're bringing a lot of our internal stuff into this relationship. And we project stuff and we bring past patterns and things to it. And then we blame the person, or we blame the relationship itself. But reality is, one of the lessons that I've learned and that I've really come to realize that is so crucial for us to really understand, grasp, and act on is the power of personal responsibility. Taking responsibility for your actions and taking responsibility for everything that happens in your life. Because we're not victims, nothing happens by chance. You're always creating. Everything that happens in your life, you at some level were involved in it, because we have the power of choice. And with choice comes things. When you make a decision, then something happens from that. And whether they're good or bad, you still had a choice. Or whether your choices are limited, you still have a choice and you work with what you got. But personal responsibility gives you so much power, because when you're a victim and when you always think that everything is outside of you and that it's everybody else's problem, or it's this thing or that person or my environment or whatever that is the problem, then you're never going to be able to shift yourself from whatever problem you're having, because you're not the problem. You have no control of it. It's out there. But if I can own it, no matter what, even if it is true that there's another party involved and they did things that were wrong and they did hurt you, and because there are stuff that happens, of course, our environment, we're always having things that are happening to us, but it's how you experience it. But you take control because you're an active participant in every aspect of your life. And so when you own it, you can shift it, and you can say, okay, let me look at this. How can I learn from this? How can I shift this? So number one of the biggest things I feel is personal responsibility. Own it. Even in your relationships, you have to own everything. Each person needs to be responsible for themselves. We are not responsible for each other's feelings. You're not responsible for the way I feel, if you make me happy or unhappy. And this is what we do. We get into relationships, and all of a sudden, it's like we let ourselves go as an individual. We forget that we're an individual ourselves, and we're like, we put all this stuff, all this responsibility, all this pressure, all these needs and voids for the other person to now fill. And in reality, that's kind of crazy. Of course, relationships are difficult because nobody's owning personal responsibility. Everybody's just going into a relationship to take, because most of us are unfulfilled. There's a lot of stuff, there's voids, there's a lot of issues that we haven't cleared up, which is, again, it goes back to creating within. Why doing the inner work is so important, because it affects every aspect of our lives. It isn't until we can really tackle our stuff and really sustain our own energy and really be empowered within ourselves and be able to feed ourselves and look at those dark areas that we don't want to look at, that everything else in our life will start working in unison with that. But you can't expect to have a relationship, because having a relationship is you're sharing, it's two different worlds coming together, and that's the beauty of it. That's what's so beautiful about relationships, because you're basically sharing to another world with another person. You're getting to know how this person thinks, what their perception, the things that they're interested in, just who they are. It's a whole other world, and separate from yours. And that's what's interesting about it. But a lot of times you get into relationships and you lose that. You lose who you are, and you blend yourself into a we and forget about the I. And you start letting go of the things that are important to you, whether it's, working out or spending time with your friends. Little by little, most of us, whether we're aware of it or not, you're giving things up in a relationship. You're conforming. You're like, well, she doesn't like this, he doesn't like that, but maybe, it's not a big deal if I don't have any girlfriends or if I don't have any guy friends, because it makes this person uncomfortable. So, I love them, so I want to make them happy, so I'm just not going to have any male or female friends, for example. You're giving stuff up, and it may not seem like anything at first. It's like a little thing, but every time that you give up something that you're like, I can barely deal with this, or you say yes when you mean no, or you're always doing things for the other person, but it's not really something you want to do, eventually what's going to happen is you're going to end up resenting this person because you're not being true to yourself. You're changing and you're adjusting to make this other person happy, when in reality, it is not our job to make anybody else happy. Each person is responsible for their own happiness. I've learned, and I'm guilty of this, and I can say this because I've been there, but where I'm at today and the perspective I have, I've realized it's like a relationship. You go there to give, and it's two people who are freaking awesome and want to go in there and share their awesomeness with each other and experience and have an exchange of insight. And you're not the same, so you're not always going to think the same. You're not going to agree on the same things, but you have a connection and you love each other, and your vision of life is kind of the same. You're going in the same directions, but you each have your own worlds, and together you support each other and you help each other, be more of who you are, not limit you. A relationship should not limit you or contain you. And I've come to realize that a lot of times that's what it becomes. Relationships limit us. They contain us. They, all of a sudden you're in a relationship and you start changing who you are. You start doing things that you normally would do because now you're in this relationship, and now it's a we all the time. And so, yeah, of course people aren't happy because you're not expressing who you are, and you're almost, it becomes almost like a prison, whether we're aware of it or not. And sometimes we're not, because sometimes you want love so badly, or you want connections. Like, we want to connect with another person so bad. And that's nothing wrong with that, because I think life is meant to be shared. Life is meant to be experienced with other people, because it enhances the experience. But it should enhance it. And so when you're in a relationship that feels more like constant work, and it feels more of like you're walking on eggshells all the time, or you're constantly giving and giving and giving and you're not getting anything in return, you have to really look at where are you? What are you doing? Because it's usually always us. And for the caretaker syndromes, for example, I'm guilty, caretaker anonymous here. For a long time in my life, like, I was the type of person that I went through a couple of phases, but one of the phases I went is when I got into a relationship, all of a sudden it's like I totally forgot about myself, and I have I call it a gift and a curse sometimes, but it's not really a curse because I understand now and I know, but I have an ability to really read people and to really understand and to kind of anticipate their needs. But it's terrible because when you're constantly taking care of someone else, like, number one, there's no desire in that. When somebody's constantly all about you, and you don't have to, they're going to bend over backwards, and no matter what you do, they're always going to be there. Like, that in ideal sounds great, but reality is, the person still has to be an individual. And, and we think as caretakers, oh, because we love this person, but it's not like a relationship is not like a child. You're not supposed to be there all the time just worrying about this person and living in this person's mind and what is this person doing. And no, a relationship is to give and to still be you and to be able to just experience life with someone else. But it's not so much about just constantly giving and trying to solve this person's problems and save them. No. It's a unit, you know, and you give, but you have to know when to draw the line and be like, you know, today I would really like to see you, but I have other things I gotta get done, and that takes precedence and that takes priority. And if it's the right person, they're gonna understand. And if it's not, then at least you know sooner than later. And so just really owning personal responsibility and putting yourself first and realizing that nothing is more important than you, and that it's good to love and to be loving and to take care of other people, but you cannot give more of yourself than you're giving to yourself. Because if you're constantly giving out energy to someone else and taking care of somebody else, but you're not taking care of your own needs, then who's going to take care of you? Because if you're constantly giving and no one's giving to you and you're not giving to yourself, then you're depleted. There's an unbalance there. So I feel like the best relationships would be where two people are giving themselves, are feeding themselves, are doing the things that make them happy, and then they come together and they share in their stuff and they talk about, you know, where they're at in their life. It's like you still have two lives of your own, but you're coming together and sharing it. But you don't lose sight of who you are, and you don't stop doing things or being who you are because you're in a relationship. So that's kind of like a little bit what I wanted to talk about today. I can go into this subject a lot more, and I think I'll make another video on trust, because that's another big important factor in trusting. But I guess I'll leave you guys with this. I kind of rambled a lot. I don't know if it was useful, if you got anything out of it, but I figured I'd just give you some insights into my crazy little world up here. Anyways, talk to you soon. Signing off here with Creating Within, and we'll talk soon.